This mini game app is live on the internet right now. Real leaderboard, a reservation system, and a database collecting every single entry behind it. And it was built for a small drinkware brand from one written prompt. No developer, no code, no hosting setup. I built it on Fable 5, Anthropic's newest and most capable model connected to Higgsfield's app builder. Now you've probably heard that this combo is pretty amazing, but I'd rather show you exactly what it does, what it actually costs, and how it all works, and let you decide for yourself. So the question you probably have is, Fable 5 on its own can already create beautiful websites. So why do you need Higgsfield at all? Well, because the code was never the hard part. The difficult part is everything after the code, hooking it up to a real URL, setting up database so form entries actually land somewhere, the DNS connection, hosting, and connecting backend to front end. That's where business owners or a solo operator either lose a weekend or pay a developer. With Higgsfield App Builder, the same prompt comes back as a finished product, deployed with a live address and a database included, completely live and usable and accessible to the public. And that makes this the best method I've found for prototyping. If you have a business idea, you don't need to spend thousands finding out if people actually want it. You put the working version on the internet in an afternoon, share the link, and watch the database. If there's traction, then you'll invest in the full build and you'll walk into it knowing exactly what you want. By the end of this video, you'll know how to go from a single prompt to a fully built live web app that your customers can actually use, complete with your own public URL and a working database collecting leads, even if you've never written a line of code and are pretty new to Claude. I'll give you the exact prompt that I used, the real credits cost, and the 3 things you might want to pay attention to when you decide that the app is working fine and want to develop it to a more mature version of the app. Now, if you find videos like these useful, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. It really does help a lot. Now let's dive right in. So the first thing you want to do, you want to make sure that you're Claude Desktop. If you don't already have that, go over to claude.com/download, and that's where you can download Claude Desktop into your computer. The reason why you want Claude Desktop in your computer is because you want to be able to use Claude Cowork to work together with Higgsfield and connect it to Higgsfield. And the benefit of having Claude Desktop is that then Cowork can access the local files that are in your system. So I imagine if you're a running business, you probably have a bunch of folders and files that live within your local system or your Google Drive, which you can download and put in your local system too. So the fact that Claude will have access to these files is super important because that gives it the contextual knowledge, the base knowledge, in order to build the web app that is on brand and on style with your business or your product. So go ahead and click download to Claude Desktop. And once you do that, when you open up Claude Desktop, what it'll ask you to do is to sign in. So make sure you sign in with the email that's registered to your paid Claude. You need at least the Claude Pro plan in order to do this because Cowork is only available for Claude Pro and above. So it's just something to take note of. Once you're here, what you want to do is go over to Cowork, and from there, you can choose the project that you want to pick. So here I have a bunch of projects, but I already have a project called Solve Tumblr. So I'm just going to go over there. And here's going to ask if it's okay for Claude to change files in the project. So you want to hit allow and you open up the project for you. So to give you a bit of context for Solve Tumblr, this is a fictitious company that's selling tumblers, right? And it's part of my demo for Cowork in the past as well. So I thought I'll just use the same fictitious company to build on top of. And the way project works is it gives you access to the folder that you connected to. Right, that's the reason why I was connecting the Solve Tumblr folder, because inside the folder, there is a bunch of markdown files, which is just text files describing the voice and tone, typography, color palette of the said brand. And then there's also images that is involved. So some of the images of the Tumblr itself, how it looks like. And again, this was generated with Higgsfield before in the past because I was doing a video about it. And if you want to check out that video, I'll link it up here and down in the description below as well. It's meant to target the luxury upper segment where people are particular about how their Tumblr looks and stuff like that. And one of the unique selling point of the Tumblr is the natural looking hairline steel finish that is on the Tumblr. And at the same time, the durability, the fact that you only need one for a long time, and it focuses on the natural hairline brush finish on the steel. And that's the reason why this mini game app makes sense, is because we want to create something that has got to do with the hairline brush finish. So we call it the engraving. So that's what the mini app is called. And we don't want the game to be too complex. Again, this is meant to incite some activities for visitors that are curious about the Tumblr. So it needs to be something that has to do with a brand, but nothing too complex, nothing too heavy when it comes to game mechanics and stuff like that. So what this is this is just a precision game where there's this oscillating line, which is one of the hairline brush. And what we want to do is obviously be able to align it to the middle. So it's intuitive what you're supposed to do. And if you hit it near the main center line of the thing, it gets highlighted. So you know that you're hitting the right spot over there. And there are 20 strikes in total, and by the end of that, you get a score, and you can get your name up in the scoreboard. And if you're the top 50, you're going to get a freebie or one of the tumblers sent to you. So that's the whole idea. Again, this is just a concept. We can obviously iterate it. I didn't spend too much time thinking of the concept, but just to let you know what we are trying to achieve here. So once you have the project set up, point it at the right folder, what you want to do now is connect Higgsfield to your Claude session. And there are two ways to do this. Number one is just go over to the plus sign over here, and under go to Actions, but don't go to browse this, but you're not going to be able to find the Higgsfield connector here. It's not part of the official Anthropic connector. So what you want to do is go to the add custom connector, and then here, just name it Higgsfield, and then the remote MCP server URL, you can get that from this webpage here, higgsfield.ai/MCP. Again, I'll link everything down in the description below, so you don't actually have to go to the webpage to copy it. But essentially, is this MCP URL right here that you can copy and go back to your Claude session, and then hit save. That's it. So once you add that in, you'll see that under your connectors, it's going to say Higgsfield is connected. And this is because I already have Higgsfield connected in the past, so there's no kind of sign-in authentication required. But if this is your first time connecting it to Higgsfield, what will happen the moment you hit add that MCP URL? It will pop up an authentication page, and it's going to ask you to authenticate into the account that you have on Higgsfield on your Chrome browser. So make sure that the account on the Chrome browser, the email address that you're using, is the same email address that you're using for your Claude session as well, because sometimes a mismatched email address becomes an issue when trying to connect the Claude session to Higgsfield. So the steps are pretty easy. Copy the Higgsfield URL into the custom URL, and then do the auth login and connect and sign in. The other way to connect this is the same, but instead of going to the plus sign, you can go over to customize, and under this you see the list of connectors. So the same thing, you can add custom connector and just do the same steps that we did. All right, so Higgsfield's already connected over here. So what we want to do now is just paste the long prompt that we're going to give it. It is one prompt, but again, with the one prompt, you typically want to be a bit more comprehensive. Even though this is not going to be a sophisticated, super complex app, but again, it's got its own nuances, it's got its own details that you want to nail. So what you might want to do is actually chat with Claude to come up with the effective prompt, or this long comprehensive prompt about your brand. Have Claude go into the project files, understand what is your brand color, which is what's here, design system, what is the messaging, the centerpiece of the minigame is called engraving, the concept of the game. You might want to just brainstorm and come up with the concept, and then after that, ask it to create an effective prompt in order for Claude and Higgsfield to create the app that you want. So here's pretty lengthy. I'm not going to read through everything, but essentially it's just asking it to build the app, what it's about, design system, scoring, page structure. The tumbler is shown side on with a notch marked on this band. A thin line sweeps left and right across the band. The player taps or clicks to strikes, and each strike etches a permanent mark exactly where the line was at the moment. 20 strikes per run, and the sweep gets faster every 5 strikes. So, and then there's the scoring metrics, 0 to 50 points per strike, 3 near perfect, And then of course there's the scoring, there's the data, store the game scores, reservations in the database. And just to show how the data all works, I wanted to seed it with 140 possible fake reservations, 12 leaderboard entries. So it's not empty, right? So we want to show that there has been played and stuff like that. So yeah, so this is just a very compact, comprehensive prompt that we're giving to Claude to let it run. So I'm just going to send it that, and it's going to kick off the project and start building the mini web app for you. So the first time it builds, it's going to ask for a lot of permissions, and I'm just going to allow the task for this because it's new to Higgsfield. So every activity is probably going to ask for permission for that. And if you're tired of just approving all the permissions, what you can do is go over to connectors over here and go over to Higgsfield. And what you can do is just toggle over all the tasks to automatically always allow. Right now, it's just pending for permission, and that's the reason why it's asking for permissions every single turn. So here it's asking for another one. So as it's building that, it's going to obviously involve a lot of images and videos that can be created on Higgsfield, right? Or for example, if you already have a running business, you have a set of base photos, you can actually improve that or even have variation of those photos, or even videos made from those photos through Higgsfield, right? So you can just tell Claude basically in simple English that, hey, I'd like this to be a moving motion reel instead of just a photo. And you can actually incorporate that into the web app as well. And one neat thing is that if you go to Higgsfield, you can actually look at the images that Claude has created by just going to the images over here, right? So if you go to images, you can see that these are the images that I've created in the past and that Claude is in the process of making, which is the ledger, which is related to the web app that we're building. So just to let you know that Higgsfield actually have its own platform that you can view all these things, which make things a lot easier. So the first time you're running it, it's going to create a bunch of assets that's going to be used in the web app. Like, so for example, this is probably the hero banner over here. And then there's a couple of mock-up design for the games and the leaderboard, how it looks like, and some of the other visuals that might be useful to create a pretty good looking mini game app. So here it looks like it's almost finished, or actually finished. The site is live and passes every check I can run without a browser. The brief QA checklist, also the must interactive test. So yeah, part of the QA checklist, if we're able to do a real test on the Chrome browser or your browser or any other browser to make sure that the app is working as is. So here I'm just gonna connect it to Chrome, then retest. So it's pretty cool that you can actually publish this directly into Higgsfield community, but also there is the Higgsfield app contest, and I could immediately participate directly from here. There's a CTA over here. And what it is, and this is probably a good time to kind of mention it a little bit, is a contest sponsored by obviously Higgsfield with the grand prize of $100,000 for any app that's built with Higgsfield. And you can see some of the pretty cool looking apps that's been developed over here. Some of them are a lot more sophisticated and complex than what we've built actually, but you can really go crazy on these things, right? But of course, I'm also trying to pay attention to what is realistically useful for a business. That often doesn't mean the most complex app. That just means whatever that your clients or customers might enjoy using and add value and has an element of uniqueness in the said app. And also, I don't want to pick something that's too complex because this is meant to show you how fundamentally Higgsfield and Claude comes together and be able to work. And Higgsfield obviously being the image video generation portion, putting together the app. You can't compute it without Claude. As you can see, you can actually use supercomputer by just typing it into here the same way you would type in the Claude. But of course, with Claude, there's a lot more upside, being the fact that you can access your brand, your local files, and be able to take reference to that and create something that is on brand in the same element as your business and product. But yeah, this looks interesting. So if you're interested in potentially having a shot at $100,000, yeah, go ahead and try to create an app and see if you can come up on top. And one last thing is Higgsfield is actually giving out 100 free credits to every single new MCP user inside of Claude. So go ahead and take advantage of that. 100 credits can get you a long way depending on how many image generation we require. But it's good enough for you to kind of try it out and get a hang of things, understand how it all works. Of course, building a mini web app is not the only application. You can build websites, you can build landing pages, you can build survey forms, any form of interactive artifacts that you want to build. You can do that through Higgsfield, and that will just take away all the aesthetic heavy load that you may want to do. So now you can actually do a live preview of the app. If you go to higgsfield.ai/supercomputer/apps, what you can do is actually go over to my apps right on top over here. So you'll be able to see the list of apps that you created. Here is basically what we built for Solve Tumblr. So this is an easy preview of what it looks like, and I kind of like how interactive it is. It just looks like a finished website, even though it's not really meant to be a website, right? It's meant to be a landing page where you can play this mini game and get your name up in the leaderboard. And if you're top of the leaderboard, you can get basically a free tumbler. And the inspiration for this, again, is because the brand is meant to focus on the hairline brushes on the steel, and that's the aesthetic kick for Solve Tumblr. So this is what the game will look like. There'll be interactive hairline placement that oscillates around the tumbler. And the point of the game is, of course, you want to be as close as possible to the center bit over here. So I'm gonna just do my best here. We will get 20 tries of this, and then at the end of it, we'll see if I would make it to the top of the leaderboard. So every time I hit that, there's a little black bar that shows up, which is, oops, yeah, there we go. I'm actually doing quite well, I think. Okay, so your hand recorded 840, the band remembers 50 steadiest hands win their engraving and first access. So here I can put in my first name, email address, and claim my place. And if I lock that in, I'm gonna be listed as one of the people here. So let's type that in. And I say this is my email. Just gonna hit claim my place, and there we go, 840. And as you can see, I'm now number 9 on the leaderboard. So the whole app, or the whole web page actually works as intended, right? It records my score, it ranks me on the leaderboard, and later on, we'll take a look at how we can get all this data from the backend so that you can do marketing activities towards all the leads that you've collected from this Me app. And then there's a couple sections down here talking about the Tumblr, of course. Yeah, just a close-up shot. Okay, so this looks like it's done. Live URL has been deployed to this link right here. So let me try to go to that link, and so you can see this is the app, and it's live, it's publicly available, and people can access it. So yeah, that is successfully deployed. So now let's say if I want to make some changes, right? So let's say for the leaderboard, I like a box around the leaderboard. So what I do now is just simply ask it to add a box around the leaderboard section directly over here, right? I'm just going to send it that. Yep, and it's just gonna work through that and add a box around that section. All right, so now I'm just gonna refresh this. And let's go down to the leaderboard. And as you can see, there is a pretty simple box being built around this, right? Again, it's nothing crazy. I just want to do something simple to let you guys know that you can easily change anything just by simply prompting it, telling Claude in plain English exactly what you want. And before we go, there are a couple of things that Claude actually included in the report of the build. So as you can see, the credit spent on Higgsfield, 30 out of 2,500 cap. So I gave it a cap of 2,500, which is obviously too much anyway. So you didn't need anywhere close to that. You just needed 30 credits really out of all of that. So that is to say that given prudent measures in terms of how you spend the credits, Higgsfield is not one of those platforms that is prohibitively too expensive, at least in my experience. If you're doing some other stuff that is heavy on images, maybe a video reel, a full video that you're generating with AI, maybe that's going to take a lot more credits. But as far as building a web page, a landing page, an app that you want working right off the gate, the credit spend is actually very little. And one last thing is, as you can see, there is an admin dashboard that's been built over here. So let's just go to this link and see what's that about, right? So the passphrase is over here, still by design -41. And of course, we're gonna revoke all of this after the recording. But this is just to show how you can capture the list of people who have been submitting their entries, right? So this is as important as the app itself, because a real working app is not a real working app if there's no backend admin or the database view where you can actually see who's been coming into the website and submitting stuff. Essentially, why you're building this app is to capture leads, right? If you can't retrieve the leads, then why are we building the app? So this is a very crucial step of building that app. So that every time there's a new entry that's coming in, that's gonna go into this list, and we can export it to CSV over here. And of course, again, like the main web app, this can be iterated, this can be improved with Claude just by telling it what you want. I just want to be clear that this is not a full built mature app that's going to sustain 1 million concurrent users and crazy stuff like that, right? This is just meant for POC or proof of concept or prototyping or MVP. So as you can see, it can be deployed publicly, people can use it off the bat, and that's all you want, right? Once you hit a certain traction, let's say you see 2,000, 3,000 entries, and at that point you're thinking, okay, this motion is really working, and that's when you might want to engage a team or use Claude Code to actually build up a real production-ready app that is scalable, depending on your volume of traffic that you expect. And in terms of usage, as you can see, there's nothing super crazy, 8 credits, 2 credits just for the image generation and some of the video generation. And that's really it, right? $1.40 in terms of the total generation to make an app. So in terms of pricing, what does that look like? So as you can see, there is 3 pricing plans here, Starter, Plus, and Ultra. And at Starter, you're already getting 200 credits per month, and at Plus, you are getting 1,000 credits per month. So if you think this is interesting enough to explore, go ahead, take it for a spin, and see what you think. And lastly, I also mentioned 3 things that I've cautioned at the start of this video. And this is for when you decide your app is good enough to build a mature version, right? So a couple of things to pay attention to. Number one is obviously payments. As you can see, what we're doing here for this particular demo, there were no payments involved. It's completely free. And currently, there's no easy way to take money safely with whatever you build on Higgsfield. The app is a single live deployment on Higgsfield's infrastructure with no PCI compliance story, no Stripe-style audited checkout, and no staging environment to really test your payment flow before it goes live. So just something to keep in mind if you're trying to take payments. And number 2, sensitive customer data is obviously important. So anything beyond a name and an email, anything that has to do with health information, financials, ID documents, password, and stuff like that. The app's database is good, but it's a single live production database. So there's no separation of test and production data, access controllers, whatever the app itself implements are in the shared with one password, as you saw. So a lot of these may not be compliant depending on which region of the world you're in. So just to make sure that you're not collecting super sensitive data of your client and customers through whatever you're building here. So of course, lastly, the URL itself ends with higgsfield.app. So anybody who's going to the URL, if they're paying attention, they know that you're building it on Higgsfield. So that's something that obviously once you decide to migrate to a more mature version of the app, you might want to host it yourself, have your own URL that has your brand name imbued in it. So that's it. That's an easy way to put together a prototype or an MVP of an app that you can launch in an afternoon with Claude Fable 5 and Higgsfield. And as always, if you find videos like this useful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. It really does help a lot. And I'll see you on the next one.